behind the walls of Australia's most secure women's prison. A triple murderer has found solace in an unexpected hobby that's raising eyebrows among those who know her story. Erin Patterson, the woman whose name became synonymous with one of the nation's most shocking poisoning cases, has transformed into what prison officials describe as an enthusiastic crocheter during her extended isolation at Melbourne's Dame Phyllis Frost Centre. But here's where it gets controversial. While she's creating blankets and other handcrafted items with her collection of wool, she's simultaneously enduring what a Supreme Court judge described as conditions that don't sound very humane. The stark reality of Patterson's daily existence emerged during Monday's pre-sentencing hearing, painting a picture that might surprise those following her case. This convicted killer, who took the lives of Heather Wilkinson, Don Patterson, and Gail Patterson while attempting to murder Ian Wilkinson, now spends approximately 22 hours each day confined to her cell, a routine that has persisted for roughly 400 days since her arrest in November 2023. And this is the part most people miss. Patterson's personal belongings read like an oddly domestic inventory for someone in maximum security. Alongside her crocheting wool and the blankets she's personally crafted, she keeps a hair straightener and has access to a computer. It's a jarring contrast that raises questions about what constitutes appropriate conditions for someone convicted of such heinous crimes. Jenny Hosking, who serves as Assistant Commissioner for Corrections Victoria's Sentence Management Division, provided the court with intimate details about Patterson's solitary existence. The information reveals a woman living in near-complete isolation within the facility's Gordon unit, a specialized protected area designed to shield high-profile inmates from the intense public scrutiny surrounding their cases. Here's what makes Patterson's situation even more unusual. She's technically permitted to interact with just one other prisoner, an individual serving time for terrorism-related offenses who has a documented history of attacking fellow inmates. However, Patterson's defense attorney Colin Mandy, SC, revealed that despite this allowance, his client has never actually spoken to this person. When pressed about this lack of communication, Hosking suggested it might stem from the other prisoner's unwillingness to engage with Patterson, rather than any restriction on Patterson's part. The controversy deepens when examining the timeline of Patterson's segregation. While United Nations guidelines clearly establish that 15 days represents the maximum recommended period for keeping prisoners in segregation, Patterson has endured these restrictive conditions for more than 400 days, nearly 27 times longer than international standards suggest is acceptable. This raises uncomfortable questions about whether the Australian prison system is inadvertently crossing the line into cruel and unusual punishment. Regardless of the severity of her crimes, Patterson's access to outdoor space illustrates another layer of her restricted existence. Although the Gordon unit features small courtyard areas, she can only utilize these spaces when they're completely vacant. This means her daily outdoor time, already limited to a maximum of 1 hour, can be further reduced if another prisoner happens to be using the area. It's a scheduling nightmare that effectively makes her a prisoner within a prison. Communication opportunities remain equally limited. While each cell is equipped with an intercom system allowing prisoners to engage in one-on-one conversations, Patterson faces a significant barrier. She would need to know the names of other inmates to initiate contact. Given her isolation and the nature of her case, acquiring this information proves nearly impossible, creating another layer of separation from human connection. The prison's library services, typically a lifeline for long-term inmates, remain largely inaccessible to Patterson due to frequent lockdowns caused by chronic staff shortages. Hosking acknowledged these limitations, but expressed optimism that ongoing recruitment efforts might alleviate the situation by year's end. Once Patterson receives her sentence, she'll gain access to the facility's educational programs, assuming the staffing situation improves. But here's where the debate gets heated. Patterson's defense team argues that these harsh isolation conditions should influence her sentencing. Mandy contends that his client's enforced separation creates a significantly heavier burden of imprisonment compared to what typical inmates experience. He maintains that Patterson's high-profile status and the nature of her crimes mean she'll likely face these restrictive conditions indefinitely, as mixing with the general prison population would put her at considerable risk. Victorian Supreme Court Judge Christopher Beale didn't mince words when addressing Patterson's situation, stating that her isolation conditions don't sound very humane, and expressing confidence that such restrictions would be necessary for an extended period. He noted that Patterson's notoriety isn't likely to fade anytime soon, an assessment that prosecutor Jane Warren challenged, arguing that public interest will eventually wane. This case forces us to confront an uncomfortable question. At what point does necessary protection cross the line into excessive punishment? While Patterson's crimes were undeniably horrific, her current living conditions challenge our understanding of justice, rehabilitation, and human dignity within the correctional system. Patterson's sentencing is scheduled for September 8, when Judge Beale will determine not just the length of her imprisonment, but potentially set a precedent for how the justice system balances public safety, punishment, and humane treatment for high-profile offenders. What do you think? Does Patterson's isolation represent necessary protection or cruel punishment that goes too far? Should someone convicted of such serious crimes expect different treatment, or do basic human rights apply regardless of the offense? The answer might reveal more about our society's values than we're comfortable admitting.